Well, hi everyone, this is the first in a series of videos about growing fruit trees in pots. There's a lot to be said about pot growing fruit trees, especially now that we're getting an increasing number of semi-dwarf and dwarf varieties, but even the big old vigorous ones, as long as you keep them contained, will grow well in pots. And some of the advantages, well, you can stick them on a patio, you can shift them around according to the season, you can just use them as decoration because most fruit trees are great ornamentals. So we're going to go through some fairly basic things, and the first thing we're going to talk about is, well, what size pot do you need and what type of pot do you need? Okay, I mean the basic one of course is your good old plastic pots that you can buy from hardwares and garden centres, and you can even go the next stage of the self-watering ones, though I don't believe you need self-watering ones, and we'll talk about that in the next segment when we speak about potting mixes and the additives we give them. But I mean these are basically cheap. You get up to about 70 litre with this one, but it actually only contains about 40 litres of potting mix, which is not enough for larger trees. But for the real super dwarfs, the Trixie, Dixie, Pixie series type fruit tree, not a problem, and they're nice and cheap. Now, for those on a budget or skinflints like me, one of the best pots you can get are the recycled 200 litre drums cut in half, effectively a 100 litre pot. And once again in the next segment we'll talk about potting mixes, but this one contains about 60 litres, maybe 70 litres of actual growing medium. So it is quite suitable, and you can grow most fruit trees in a pot like this, given the potting mix we'll talk about later, for a good 15 years, sometimes even 20, but I'll guarantee at least 10. So yeah, they're cheap. Go to your local packaging recycling companies, there's plenty around, and pick them up. They'll cut them in half for you for a small fee extra, and then you just drill some holes around the bottom edge for drainage, but nice and cheap. So $10 or $12 a pot is really getting nice and cheap. And now we move on to the next stage, and that's using old wine barrels, and this is a great way to go. They are a bit pricey, starting at $60 up to $100 each, but they will last a heck of a long time and look really, really good. Now this is from a 135 litre barrel cut in half, and it only contains a little bit more soil volume than the half plastic drums, but still suitable for heaps of different trees you might want to grow. We will show you in a minute about making how to set these up, and we're going to go to the larger wine barrels, which cost up close to $100 for a half, and these are from the 280 litre wine barrels, which effectively give you up to 100 litres of soil mix. Big, heavy, but extremely durable and last a long time. Some people may want to go to terracotta and clay pots, but to get that type of soil volume you're paying an absolute fortune, and you need to hire a crane if you need to shift them around. If you want something that's really, really durable, looks fantastic, seriously consider using half wine barrels. They're the bee's knees, and that's what we're going to show you now. So this is a half to 80 litre barrel. You effectively get 135 litres in one of these. So another thing, this if you wish, just get some decent surface spray, some outdoor surface spray, and just give this a really good coating all the way around, especially on the rim. You can do the bottom if you wish, but a good saturation of the rim for at least 6 to 8 months will stop anything getting in there, things like spiders and stuff, but also some of the beetles and other things that may get into your potting mix. And the last thing you want in the potting mix with a young tree establishing in the first season is things like African black beetle larvae or cockchafer larvae having a go at the roots. So it gives a bit of a chemical barrier for the short term anyway. One of the reasons for putting them on the outside rather than the bottom is that they're clearly visible, and if you ever suspect that the drain holes are blocked up, you simply get a screwdriver or a bit of rod and just poke it through, and you'll free the drain holes up. A lot easier than tipping these heavy barrels over. And then the next thing is, and this is an optional extra, but I reckon it's worth the money, is that we now put casters on the bottom. Any decent hardware store sells a range of casters. This is actually a good size and fairly cheap. It's only about $5, and we have 4 of them, and we put them on the bottom. This is great for when you're not going to be in really heavy duty country, like on verandas or decent paving. You can get rubber sponge ones, you can get even stainless steel, but you can get heavy galvanised one for use in rough conditions. But these solid neoprene wheels, they've got a greased bearing, should last for years. And this is, so they're placed around there, which we'll show you in a tick. But this is another reason why not to put the drain holes on the bottom of the barrel, is that of course these are going to rust far more quickly. At least where the drain holes are on the outside, you're going to get a lot better serviceable life. So we're going to put 4 of these on, and just one little hint, I learned by mistakes as we all do, is that make sure when you put them on that you have them in so this caster will swing through. A couple of times I've put them in nice and close and then realised the caster won't turn, and they jam and make them a mongrel to shift around. So what are we talking about? $20 for the caster, a couple of dollars for the nuts and bolts to put them on. It means you can roll them around. It also means that it gives a bit of an air gap above the ground, and you can also get a trolley or a fork or something under, and you can also spray underneath for slaters and spiders. So putting the first caster on, just line it up with the wheel so you do get a few mil of clearance on that side. Obviously the closer the casters are to the rim, the more stable will be, particularly on rough brick paving. Okay, now I'm using galvanised. You can go to the extreme of stainless steel, but that silly galvanised will last fairly well. Don't get confused with the zinc plated stuff. You've got to go the galvanised. Now these are 10mm bolts, and they're called cuphead bolts, and simply through the holes and make sure they're properly bedded in using a hammer. Now these are 40mm cuphead bolts. You can probably get away with 30. Most of the bottoms are of even thickness. The only reason I got 40s was my hardware only had the 40s by the box. They only had the 30s individually, and they cost you 3 times as much. You really only need 2 bolts per caster, but if you wish to go one step further, you can use just a roofing tech with a washer in the other bolt holes just for a bit more stability if you wish. Optional extra. Okay, so there's the casters going and ready to go. You can drop it on the side. You see why it's empty even on this packed gravel floor. It moves around reasonably well. Different story when it gets full of potting mix, and that's the next segment.